It is No Gifts, Please, the parenting podcast by the pair with no real gifts, but a whole lot of gumption. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Noviello.
Hello, I'm Jenny Anchondo.
And you're looking very well rested, I must say. It must be the lighting.
Hilarious. I'm sure that's sarcastic.
Okay,
I do have really good concealer and really bloodshot eyes. But we do have some sleep help today.
We do have some sleep help today. So can I ask?
I mean, I don't want to trash talk my baby
But
because she's amazing
she's not listening.
and perfect in every single way. But it would be cool if we had some longer sleep stretches because
how long is she doing?
3 hours max, which that might be totally age appropriate. She's about 7 weeks old, so that might be totally fine. But we have an expert today who will weigh in. And sometimes you just want to know, like, this is normal and it's totally fine and you shouldn't be expected to sleep longer than 3 hours. Mm-hmm. However, if I find out that other 7-week-olds are doing like 6-hour stretches, I'm going to be mad. But you know, I also say this saying that you know how excited I am to have this baby. Like I'm up in the middle of the night, actually like a little bit giddy sometimes because I'm just enjoying her so much. I'm just enjoying that she's here. But I also know that children need to be rested in order to hit their milestones and stuff too.
So are you finding, because we found this with ours, and I know that, and maybe even more so, more pronounced because the stretch has been longer between when we had our first and second and when you did.
Yeah.
But do you find that you are misremembering how easy it was with the first one?
Oh, I never thought it was easy. Brighton was, I guess, what you call colicky. So, I mean, if she was awake, she was screaming. Unless she was nursing, or I guess that's it, just nursing or
like
sleeping.
If you were to ask me when we were like up at night with Hudson whether or not Jacob was ever up at night, I'd be like, absolutely not. He was slept through the night first day. But because I had like kind of like picked away the bad parts and brushed off everything else and been like, oh, it was idyllic. And
right, we had the snoo. It just kind of rocked him back to sleep. It was like no big deal. Go. Although I have thought about you in the middle of the night because you and Doug were smart and savvy and got a night nanny.
Okay, so good transition. Let's talk. Who's our guest today?
Yes, Melissa O'Neill. So she is from Newborn Nightingales, and I feel like she's kind of a sleep celebrity in our community. And I actually used her for Brighton after we had gone many, many months with no sleep. So she is a registered nurse specializing in NICU and labor and delivery. She did that for 15 years, also a mother of 3. And now she has started this business called Newborn Nightingales, actually started in 2012. And she helps parents establish a nurturing, caring, and calm environment. This is something that I feel like I've had fleeting moments of having that, but I will say this is a self-serving interview because I have a baby who's less than 2 months old.
and you need some advice.
We need some intel. We need some advice. And really she worked so well. Her business worked so well for us, even doing like the virtual chat. I thought it would be fun to bring her in and learn a little bit. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, guys. I'm so excited to be here. And if, my favorite thing is talk about babies. So let's talk about these sweet babies.
And you look well rested too. I can tell it works because she has 3 kids and looks like really glowy.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I think sleep is super important. So really it's a gift to everybody.
I mean, and here's the thing, and not to, make even what you do is important, right? But when I think back to sleep was something we argued about in our house. I was very much like, you don't wake a sleeping baby. My husband was like, nope, they got to stay on a schedule. We got to get them up. They need to be up. If they're not up now, they're not going to go down later. Now, I will say, to his credit, they're very good sleepers now and relatively painless during the whole process. But I feel like that could be a sleep-deprived child with sleep-deprived parents is that it could be the beginning of the end for a relationship. I mean, this is like a big thing.
Absolutely. It really is a gift for the whole family. And, I always say that, the earlier you start, the better.
Yeah.
The earlier it really is for everybody.
So when can somebody start? Do you call it sleep training, by the way, or do you call it something else?
So sleep training is, in general, I think, a very scary word.
It is totally controversial.
It is. I've had families say, my pediatrician said we can't sleep train yet. And I said, well, that's not what we're doing. We're really just fostering these healthy sleep habits. If you give the kids, tools for success, I always equate it to like a puzzle. It's like a little sleep puzzle. And if you give them all those tools, then it fits nicely and it works.
Like Benadryl and whiskey, or what are we doing?
Totally. Yeah, those
I should
bottles
try
of
that.
melatonin.
I don't have that trick yet.
Melissa, I have to tell you, our daughter Brighton, who you helped with the virtual consult, we did a phone consult and the virtual sort of email help. And I emailed newborn nightingales with questions for a couple of years. She is an excellent sleeper. I'm never the parent showing up saying, gosh, sorry for her behavior. She's exhausted. And look, that could be just lucky and that was going to be her anyway, or it could be because we really followed your advice. And so she's 6.5 and sleeps from, 8 p.m. until 7 a.m. still, which I feel really lucky for. So how early can somebody start this?
So it definitely looks
should I be
very
starting
different
now?
For sure. I mean, you don't have to. It's never too late.
But you could.
Okay.
You could.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it looks different for a newborn. Babies, we're not self-soothing at that age.
Yeah.
So for like Gemma, you would definitely schedule's important, swaddling the right way important, having those good sleep associations, routines in place. Those are really the big dogs here. And when you meet those needs, and once she's big enough to get in all her calories during the day, she will naturally sleep through the night. So it's not even overly forced. And that's why I don't like to say, let's sleep train a 2-week-old, because that's
Sure.
all we're doing.
Yeah.
Is there any truth? I remember there being a mile marker of once they hit 12 pounds, they can sleep through the night, or their stomach is big enough. Is that true?
Yeah. So
Or
in
did I make that
general, babies, usually they're about 12 pounds by around the 10-week mark or so, some earlier. It really depends on more, instead of 12 pounds, 12 weeks, it's really more determined by the baby,
Okay.
Some babies are big eaters. I've had babies sleep through the night at 6 weeks. I mean, they're just huge
That's
eaters.
great for them, Melissa. I don't really want you speaking about them right now.
So let's work on Gemma's feeds. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have some babies that need a little bit longer,
So
other things
for folks who
going
are not kind of familiar with your business model, I know Jenny was just saying there was a lot of consulting and information and whatnot. Is there also a boots on the ground component here where you come into my home and you stay there overnight, or how does that work?
Absolutely. So I still do all the consultations. That's my love. I love still working with families. And then I also have a night nursing team. So I have registered nurses, and I also have nightingales who are night nannies. And everybody, we're a network of women who just love helping these families and supporting, each other and working with these babies, earlier rather than later is very helpful. And that families get to rest sooner too. So like I said, it's never too late, but if we can get in there early and these babies, like you said with Brighton, I mean, she's still a great sleeper. I mean, this is something that works. There's no reason for it not to. And so let's give the gift of sleep sooner rather than later.
I will say what was the biggest game changer for us, because Doug and I did use a night nanny. We didn't go through your company, but through a recommendation from a neighbor. And she was great, and she kept a little journal, and she did what she needed to do. But for us, even more, because again, we're a 2-dad family, so neither one of us was breastfeeding in the middle of the night. We didn't have to get out, so it was truly here you go, we'll see you in the morning, right? But I will say, in addition to the things that she did to help our kids become better sleepers, it really kind of helped our marriage and our sanity, because just knowing mentally that if we just get to 9 o'clock or whatever time it was that she came, there was a finish line at the end of the, you know what I'm saying?
Totally. I can see that.
It wasn't okay, gosh, what's today what's tonight? It was nope, she's going to be here and we're going to hand her this baby and we're going to bed. And then we will see her tomorrow morning at whatever time. And just that mental, freedom, knowing that was coming in the day was huge for us.
Yeah. And that's a schedule in itself. Humans in general like schedules, that consistency. So when you're I don't know what the night's going to hold, that's stressful for
Very.
us. So being able to give that over to somebody else and knowing that you are going to be able to sleep, which sleep, definitely that's good for you too. But also just that consistency that every night that you're getting that amount of sleep and she's coming or whoever's coming.
Because frankly, it made me a better parent and a better husband because I was able to sleep. I mean, that was, we had her during the week, and I will say on the weekends, it was oh, she's not coming tonight. But he took one, I took the other, and that was, that was kind of that.
That's what I should have gotten for Heath for Valentine's Day.
A night nanny?
As a night nanny. Well, we've had my mom in town, which she was sort of like a night nanny. You know what I mean? And so she would get up with me for the feeds in the middle of the night. And then when we were doing the triple feed where I was nursing, then she was getting a bottle. My mom would do the bottle. So then I could pump. And so it was nice to do that. But now my mom's gone, and so it's kind of interesting. We're sort of finding out what real life is going to be like. What do you think about the S2E2? Steve and I both used the S2E2. I feel like it's a little controversial, and we're not we can't be offended. So just tell us what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I think this goes along the lines with there's a lot of baby products out there that are like new, and we're like, do we really need this? Just the baby market in general is kind of oversaturated with so many things. I mean, it's not my favorite. Babies have been great sleepers without it for so long. It doesn't make babies, sleep through the night faster. Possibly, maybe it's a little bit of a Band-Aid, but, if you have a baby in a S2E2 and then a baby just in a regular bassinet, so if we have no rocking going on, those babies are going to be just as great of sleepers, if not sooner.
And for folks who might not be familiar with what the S2E2 is, so it's a bassinet, a smart bassinet that like kind of jostles, which is a big word.
Responsive.
Kind of like move, like if the baby starts crying, it kind of rocks them back to, when they're swaddled in and, all that kind of. I will say for us, it was a game changer. Like the day the night nanny left, we started in the S2E2. He slept, and I think it was about 3 months, slept through the night. We had a very good experience.
But he could have done that anyway.
Correct.
But we'll never know. We'll never know. I mean, we like
all
it.
I know is I'm still married and they both sleep. So I feel like whatever we did.
So whether it was the night nanny or whether it was the S2E2, like something's working. But I think that's interesting feedback. And I think the other thing people worry about is like when they outgrow the S2E2, what are they going to do? Who's going to rock them back to bed? And so then you kind of like go through that.
Well, because I think that it was kind of a callback to, people would say, oh, I would take my baby for a ride in the car to get them to go to sleep. They like that vibration or whatever. Okay, so I want to talk numbers a little bit here because I think there are some people that are going to be tuning in and be like, well, this all sounds very nice, but like we don't have how much does it cost to have somebody live in my house for, 6 or 8 hours? Or are there kind of tiers, like maybe, hey, it's, you access us for Q&A or tips, or maybe there is somebody full throttle. I mean, what's the budget that somebody should be looking at for this?
So I think that's something I learned really early on with Newborn Nightingales, and I started with the nurses because that's who I networked with. I'm a nurse, and I pulled from friends and friends of friends, and I quickly learned that I need to bring the price point down. So that's definitely why the night nannies are very popular, and you don't have to be locked into a certain package. I mean, there's like a lot of grandparents gift this, like they will gift like 2 or 3 nights, and the girls go in there, they teach a lot. They leave you with a lot of information, and you can be done.
So this doesn't have to be like a 2-month situation.
Not Steve and Doug.
Well, it
definitely can be.
You know what I say when people say, well, how much would that cost? I said, less than a divorce attorney. I mean, that's
yes.
That's true.
And we did. I mean, again, we're 2 guys having a baby, and so I'm going to play that card.
Smart. No, I get it. Totally.
I mean, I've had families say we would have paid millions of dollars for this.
Right, for a good night's sleep. Yeah.
And set you up for, years. Like Brighton's still a great sleeper. I mean,
yeah, she really is. And we only did like not even the in-person situation. We only did
you didn't have somebody come into the house.
No, we just did. It was I forget what
we either did a phone consult or email consult, and so there's tiers of those too. And sometimes families will ask, well, I need you to come out if we do a phone now. I've never had to go out after a phone or email consult.
So give me some, what are some of those takeaways? So for folks, can we kind of give people a little taste of like what, because I think that.
What's a good start for a schedule?
Well, and I think that people assume like, okay, the baby's crying, I'll rock them, I'll put them back down and cross my fingers. I mean, that's, but like, what is the extra expertise that you guys layer on top of that to teach people a better way?
I think you need a plan. There's so many varying degrees of schedules and, sleep plans out there and all this advice and grandparents' advice and friends' advice. And you really need something you're going to stick to and be consistent with. And that means it needs to be practical. So I'm a very practical person, and we can't hold for naps all day. I mean, that's what I did with my daughter, Madeline, and that's why Newborn Nightingale exists. So,
okay,
Thanks,
like the
Maddie.
contact. And I think for some people, so I think there are certain personalities that totally works for, where they're like, wear their baby to everything and stuff. And perhaps they're not working outside the home, or, they've got a lot of help around the house. And so they kind of do that. But for people who do need to put their baby down, what's like, are you starting the day at a certain time? Are you limiting naps to a certain time? What's sort of like, what are some of the basics?
I mean, good in general for the first 3 months, like feeding every 3 hours is great.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really stretch those feeds past that until like the 4-month mark.
During the day.
Yeah.
During the day. Or 24 hours a day.
But I mean, the most important, well, we don't want to have scheduled feeds middle of the night, that's for sure. But during the day, absolutely. Every 3
no
hours.
scheduled feeds at all overnight?
Well, we will feed babies if they want to eat, but we don't want to like wake them at midnight or wake them at a certain time. Like I don't like dream feeds, for example.
Oh, interesting, because I feel like some people totally. In fact, I think that with ours, it was like, okay, they're going to eat at midnight, 4 a.m., whatever it went. I remember there was one that we were like, oh, thank God we get to give up the 3 a.m. feeding or, whatever it was. And like, well, he's kind of sleeping anyway, know?
Yeah.
So for the folks who are like, but I feel like I'm supposed to feed this baby every 3 hours, that's not necessarily a great idea if you've got to wake him to do it.
So if you have a healthy baby and they're over 7 pounds at birth, we do not need to be waking to eat at night. We want them to dictate that schedule.
What time and ours was different because we were dealing with a weight loss issue and lack of weight gain. So we did have to wake, but I think that's more of an isolated incident. What time does nighttime start?
It depends on how old the baby is. I mean, definitely like the first 4 weeks, it's pretty late, 9:30, sometimes even a little bit later because they take forever to eat sometimes. But definitely by 2 months, we move bedtime up to 7:30.
Okay.
So you build that circadian rhythm those first 2 months. And then once that circadian rhythm takes hold, so kind of remember that night and day confusion. You're probably dealing with that a little bit with Gemma now.
Yeah.
But about the 2 month mark, if we've been, keeping somewhat of a schedule, exposing them to light during the day, that all comes naturally. And by 2 months, then babies are ready for 11 plus hours of sleep at night. So you really got to bump up that bedtime. So you're not too far away from
And
that.
are you feeding them like 37 ounces of milk before they go down? Or like how many?
Steak dinner.
Right. What are they getting? Is it a bigger feed before they go down?
No, think of it. So like we mentioned the dream feed, like I don't love the dream feed. And that's because a full tummy doesn't equate sleep. You got to think of it from the satisfaction standpoint.
Okay.
So if you can give a baby enough calories during the day, when they're big enough and old enough to do that, they don't eat at night. Babies in general don't overeat. So they're not going to be up middle of the night trying to get calories in if they're satisfied with what they got for the day for growth and development.
Okay, so you've got to stick to the 3 hours, eating every 3 hours during the day. Then nighttime starts at 7. And I think, does morning start at 7? That's what I remember we did last time. Was 7 to 7.
Yeah.
So do those rules also apply as they get a little older? Because I will say one of the things, so we have one of our boys is a big breakfast guy. The other one is no thanks, but he's a big dinner guy. And the breakfast person is not a big dinner person. And one of the things that can come up with me and my husband is he's got to eat. I don't want him to be up all night. And let me also say there has never been a time where this child has been up all night because he's hungry, right? So is that kind of the same rules apply even as they get older? I'm more of a, listen, like if you ate generally well throughout the day, I don't really care when you got the calories, what time it was, whereas he's like, no, he's got to have dinner and he's got to go to bed on a full stomach and, otherwise he's going to be up at 4:00 in the morning. Right.
No, children get what they need for sure. And if we had a child up in the middle of the night and we're like, what's going on? And then we look at their diet, then you can investigate and we can try to sneak some things in here or there. But, for the most part, some kids are just grazers, versus they're not going to sit down. Some kids can't sit down and eat a meal for 10 minutes either, and that's even pretty quick. They like to eat just intermittently. So like providing healthy snacks and, appropriate drinks during the day.
Well, I think that one of the other things to do is to recognize the cues, because what we found with Hudson is he'll get up, our younger son will get up kind of extra early, definitely before his brother. Jacob could sleep all day. And it was like, okay, are you hungry? And it was like, oh, I think you just want to spend time alone with daddies because you don't ever get any alone time
without
with
Jacob.
Without your brother. And it was like, oh, you're waking up so you can hang out.
Yeah.
It's kind of sweet,
up to
right?
party. Yeah. Who can deny that?
I mean,
he's going to be the coffee guy in the morning.
You need to teach him just how to work a Keurig or something that.
Doug gets up at 4, so
so it works out. No,
for the two of them.
What do you do with the kids who, once they become the toddler phase or once they're walking, they're getting up and getting out of bed and trying to get into bed with you? How do you deal with that?
Well, I'm a firm believer of like keeping them in their room. That's where they're safe, fire safe, to keep the door shut. So if you have to, implement a boundary, then I think that's appropriate to do so. There's also like time to wake clock. Sometimes it's just a control thing. They want to come out, and make little decisions. And so giving them some tools like that can be helpful.
Talk about the time to wake clock.
So
like the green light turning on,
yeah,
right? And still has the green light. Is that too late?
No, we totally have it.
I'm
I
almost
love
like,
it.
is that still okay?
We have it.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about how that works.
So there's different, brands that the Hatch is kind of the most common.
That's the one
Most
we
of my
have.
clients have now because, white noise is still important. I still listen to white noise.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you that too.
Yeah.
Is it okay? We still have white noise in
That's
there. I've been
great.
wondering if I should.
Is it, or are we like raising a generation of people who are going to go to college and their roommate's going to be like, "Would you shut that damn machine off because I can't sleep?"
Or maybe they'll be like, I like that. Yeah.
Right. We'll just have to find other clients of like sleep trainers.
I had a buddy of mine, one of my fraternity brothers, who had to sleep with like a fan blowing, and he had a small fan on his nightstand and had to blow in his face like all night, otherwise he couldn't sleep. And I was like, and it was something that was from his childhood.
I think if it helps you to sleep,
Well, it didn't help me to sleep. Let me just say.
Yeah, so I guess it was a wrong roommate match. So you get the Hatch or the whatever, and then how does that empower the child?
Because they get, when it turns green, you can tell, if they wake up early, it depends on the age, of course.
Sure.
But maybe you can read quietly or play in your room, and then you can come out when your clock is green, versus the fight in the early morning hours of getting them back in bed, just giving them that tool so that, one, they know what time then they can get up. And I think it's, depending on the age of the child and the child, they kind of pat themselves on the back and they say they do a good job if they have that tool and they can come out when it's green, and then you can empower them and tell them they did great.
We were talking earlier about kind of dusting off the memory of what it was like to raise your first child. And now it is flooding back to me when Jacob was little and he was in a big boy bed. I think Hudson was born, but for some reason, he wouldn't fall asleep unless you sat there with him, and then he would fall asleep. Right. But then you would have to like slither out of the room, ninja out of the room. And if you like a creaking floor, he'd be like wide awake. And I'm like, oh, it's all right. But with the Hatch, which we do use for both of the kids, and he's a bit more compliant than our little guy is, but it is enough to keep them in their room, generally in their bed as well. And one of the things that worked with us with Jacob, I remember he used to get up, and he would get up and come out, and we'd be standing there and be like, nope, go back. And like, we'd read it somewhere, and it repeated like 5 or 6 or 10 times, one night. And finally, the last time he came and he opened the door, and we were just standing there, and he was like, and he turned around and went back to bed on his own, and that was it.
Gosh.
'Cause
Consistency.
Yeah. Well, and it's so hard because, and we had a guest on, who said, short-term easy is long-term hard. It's so tempting to short-term easy some of this stuff where you're like, fine, just get into bed with me,
And you kind of want to because they're so cute and cuddly.
Well, and we do have that time, like on Saturday or Sunday mornings when I've got the boys and Doug has time to go do his thing. Like if they get up and, their Hatch tells them 7 a.m., I'll be like, come into bed and snuggle with me. And like, because I want to sleep more or just because I want to spend that time.
After the light goes off, so you're keeping the consistency.
For sure.
We do the same
Sure.
thing. Yeah, we do the same thing. What do you do for kids that are scared, that say, I'm scared?
Well, it depends on the age for sure.
Okay.
Like sometimes parents
49.
will reach. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I still don't like to sleep in the house by myself.
I would try to figure out, we don't want to entertain too much of the idea. It's kind of like a nightmare in the middle of the night. We're not going to talk about it for an hour. We're going to tuck them back in, reassure them they're safe. You're downstairs, whatever it is that makes them feel comfortable. Maybe just get to the root cause of it. Did we watch a movie? Did we read a book? Did we hear something at school? So just reassuring them they're safe. And that goes back to like shutting the door at night. We want that boundary there. And when you shut the door, say the door keeps you safe at night, and I'm right downstairs,
That's a great tip. It's so simple, but because we've recently been kind of having a little bit of that.
We play on the two daddies thing. We're like, you have two dads to keep you safe. Like,
that's so good.
No one's going to, especially with that, like, you have two dads and a big brother, and at the time, a dog. I was like, nobody is going to come get you.
So true.
And sometimes they might just be pushing you a little bit. I call it testing. So are we really afraid of something? Or are we just testing the waters here?
Well, and I think that sometimes, again, getting back to my earlier point, some of it is, I just kind of want to hang out with you, Dad. Like, so I'm kind of inventing or maybe amplifying this thing that kind of bothered me, but I know that if I make a bigger deal out of it, I can prolong the amount of time that you'll spend with me, which is sweet. but also incredibly annoying when you're exhausted.
I
right?
know. I've always thought that's so funny. Toddlers and humans in general, we don't like change. We want structure. We like that consistency. And toddlers just push those boundaries. I need water. I need to go to the bathroom. I want 18 books at night instead of 3, something like that. And so that initiates change, whatever.
Well, how did you do?
The two of you with your Jenny has like a 7-hour evening
it's
routine.
such a long routine.
It involves walks and stretching and deep breathing and yoga on the lawn.
I know.
And a book with
calls
grandma
it
and
I'm
grandpa.
getting played.
I mean,
yeah, and on talking to grandma and grandpa every night.
I mean,
you can stay consistent with that routine, then
bedtime
you're
is
good.
6
Yeah, I don't mind
and
it.
lights out is 8. I mean, at her house.
I don't. Yeah, it's true. Actually, it's true. Well, now with the baby, it's kind of like we've had to shorten it up. But we started tapering ever so slightly before she was born.
I mean, so our kids, in terms of like going to bed, because I think that's a problem. So one of the other things, and maybe whatever, it works for us. Our kids are incredibly Alexa compliant. So at 10 minutes till bedtime, she comes on the house and she makes an announcement and says, Jacob and Hudson, 10 minutes before it's time for bed. And they're like, okay, cool. And then 10 minutes later, she comes on, Jacob and Hudson, time for bed. Go grab Monkey and give daddies a kiss. And blah, blah, Jacob and Hudson say, and it'll be something from the day that she'll hearken back to and experience. So they're like full on.
That's
that
so
she
cute.
is like, right. Doug does it. He changes it every day to be something reflective of, like I'm sure tonight it'll be like, we love Valentine's Day or whatever it is. But once she tells them to go to bed, they're like, let's, when I tell them to do something, like,
does she have consequences, or like should there be consequences?
Queen Alexa.
Right. Like the robot told us to do this, so I guess it's just always been that way, and I'm not jinxing it. I mean, it's working.
No, it works.
Okay, so they're compliant with Alexa. What do you do for the child that's not compliant? And do you create consequences, like you keep getting up before the green light goes off, or how do you deal with that?
Some of that is like they just want to make choices. So like, do you want to wear this PJ or this PJ?
Sure.
Do you want to listen to this song or this song? Give them choices that I call it negotiables and non-negotiables. Bedtime is a non-negotiable. Your bedtime routine is a non-negotiable. But these things that you can make those choices. And some of it is just every single night being like, no. We do 3 books and 2 songs and we get into bed. Good night. I love you. Shut the door. Keeps you safe.
Keeps you safe. I'm going to do that with the door. I think that's going to be a really excellent component.
Do you not with the door at your house?
I mean, we close the door, but I don't say it's going to keep you safe.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of conversations right now because she started to get her reading level has surpassed her capacity to ingest information. So we're tiptoeing around chapter books that are like way too old for her. And I'm realizing when she's like, I'm freaked out. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that book had that content in it. So I think we're trying to figure out appropriate bedtime reading that's not going to make her scared.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally.
How important is sleep hygiene for the older kids? Like if somebody has like a middle schooler, how many hours should he or she be sleeping?
Oh gosh, now I'm in the realm with my oldest, she's in high school.
That's
and I'm
right.
like, I'm going to bed. You're up really late doing homework, So, I mean, I think at some point you have to take some stress away from yourself and that, they're going to put themselves to sleep. I think the biggest thing is like screens and not having screens in their room. If they want to read, my middle one, I know sometimes I'll be like, you're going to bed. It's 8:30, but if you want to read for a little bit, until you're tired. But my biggest rule is at least 10 hours of sleep until the age of 10.
Okay.
And then you can start to play with that a little bit.
To decrease it or increase it?
To decrease it a little bit, yeah. But at least,
I would love
10
5
hours
right
until
now.
10. Yeah. 5 hours in the shower when you're a new mom is a game changer.
Oh, truly. I can't wait to shower.
shower?
Too. Yes.
Well, we need to build on the 5 hours. So,
Love it.
Yes.
All right, tell people where they could find you if they want more information.
newbornnightingales.com, and then Instagram, Facebook. We do a lot of things on there, teaching on there. But I can send, all the general info and how we can help our families, email back or go through the Instagram is probably the best way.
Well, thank you for all that you
Thank
do.
you for having
You're
me.
saving marriages. Let's just be honest here.
It's so crazy when I look back, Steve, because I'm thinking, wow, we were really in the trenches and then reached out to them. And then they kind of helped us to get on the schedule. And we didn't even have anybody come into the home just because I was kind of like, nursing overnight and stuff. But it was really, really helpful. And now I'm thinking, wow, all of these habits are from that original schedule they gave us.
For sure.
Except for the chapter books that are too scary. We need to get like some like calm chapter books.
Ask the librarian.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also feel like we don't do the closed door thing in our house. And I'm curious whether or not they would be into that or not. But they also sleep. I mean, the way that our house is laid out, their bedroom door is 5 feet from our bedroom door. In your house, I mean, Brighton is like a good crosstown commute to get to your bedroom from hers.
That's why she has roller skates and she has that new scooter that you got for her. She rides a bike through the house. It feels it's a beef that I have, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. But it's interesting. I wonder, but our boys also share a room. So one day we'll probably change that. I would imagine as they
You think?
I think that when Jacob's probably like 10-ish.
Yeah.
Which gosh, now is really creeping up on us.
So
that's in 3 years. But I do think at some point they're going to need their own space and more privacy. We actually just started, this is maybe too much information, but like where I'm like, all right, buddy, go take a shower by yourself. Like go.
Oh no, that's the phase we're into. Yeah. And I think it's great.
Well, I was like,
we might be a little late.
I think we are.
We are a little late.
I heard a kid talking to him about
totally.
Like, wait, you have bath time? Like, dude, you're 20. Like,
no,
I was like, is someone supposed to tell me what?
I know.
Nobody tells you.
That's the thing. It's like, well, we had the code. We had like the night nannies for initially, and then that's right. They sent us out wild and free, and we're just following that same schedule from when they were little.
All right. We would love for you to be part of our schedule every week, and us to be part of yours. We have a new episode dropping every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. You can find us whatever podcast platform you prefer. Be sure and click like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you do nothing else today, go find yourself a friend you don't need to clean the house for. We'll see you soon.